happy to have with us some very special ladies today. We're all friends, so we'll just talk about their first names. So first we have Kate. She's an extension specialist and an assistant professor at the University of Arizona. We also have Mara, who is an assistant professor in extension and the co-PI on University of Alaska Fairbanks' current SIFAR grant, Alaska 4-H Dreamcatchers. And we also have Diana, who is a Juntos extension specialist at North Carolina State, and she's also the co-developer and senior director for the Juntos program. So without further ado, we'll turn it over to them, starting with Kate.
All right, thank you. So I wanted to start by thanking you for the opportunity to be here today and talk a little bit about our project and the partnerships that we've developed. So you can go to the next slide. So I wanted to start by just giving you a little bit of information about our project. We're doing an early literacy program for 2 Native American communities in Arizona. So I've circled them here on the map. We're serving both the San Carlos Apache tribe, which is the southern of the 2 that I've circled, and then part of the Navajo Nation. And if you want to go to the next slide. And I would be remiss and misrepresenting this work if I did not acknowledge our larger team. So that's what I'm doing here. I'll introduce you to 6 of the members here and then 2 other team members later. And there is an even larger team for this project. These are just the people who are most directly working on developing these relationships. So for the program on the Navajo Nation, we have Joyce Alves and Nathan Nota. Joyce is a recently retired extension agent with University of Arizona, and Nathan is a FERTEP, or a federally recognized tribal extension program agent. And then Juan Arias and Ashley Dixon are leading up the team for the San Carlos community. Juan is the FERTEP agent and Ashley is a extension agent with University of Arizona. And then Michelle Walsh and Violeta Dominguez are our evaluation team, and we're really lucky to have them. They also have extensive experience working with Native communities, the Navajo Nation and San Carlos Apache tribe, but also other communities across the state. So all of the people on this team have years and years, in some cases as many as 20 or 30 years, experience working with these 2 communities in particular. So this relationship building did in no way started with this project. But if we go to the next slide. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we did specifically for this project. And I divided this up into 3 time points. So if you go to the next slide. We'll start with talking about what we did to start building relationships before we received funding. So about a year before we applied for funding, we started talking to members of the community and community stakeholders, other people who are doing early literacy programming. We sort of workshopped our ideas with them, learned about the needs that the community had identified. We really did not want to ourselves identify a need and then come in with a program to solve that. We wanted to create a program that would address a community identified need. It was also really important to us that we develop a program that didn't just duplicate things that were already going on in the community. That didn't seem like a good use of time or resources. So we worked to understand what work was already being done in this space and where we could bring resources and where we could contribute and really complement and expand the existing programs. And if you go to the next slide. And so then after we received the SIFAR funding, almost immediately we convened advisory boards that meet regularly. So we have 1 advisory board in each community. We received our funding in September 2019, and by the end of that year, we had already convened the advisory boards and even met with them at least once. I think we might have met on the Navajo Nation twice. So that was one of the very first things that we did, and we worked extensively with these advisory boards ever since then, and we really, they're actively involved in our project. It's not just meetings where we kind of present or tell them what we're doing or update them, but they're working meetings where we get their feedback on what we're working on. We were very intentional in our hiring for this project. So Cotillion and Chris are the 2 people who are delivering this programming. Cotilion's delivering it to the Navajo Nation and Chris to San Carlos Apache tribal lands. They are both people who know those communities They've worked and lived in those communities for many years and are well connected within those communities in an early literacy space. And then we also look for opportunities to support and promote the other programming in the community. So because we're not duplicating things that other programs are doing, it's very easy for us to work with them and to support them. One example of how we're doing that is we have websites for both of these programs. And on those websites, we have a list of community resources where we acknowledge other programs in the communities. And then the next slide. And then some future plans. These are sort of short-term future plans. We're planning to distribute quarterly reports to community stakeholders and extension leadership. So really using that as one way to build both internal and external champions for this project and just really keep the community updated on what we're doing, the successes that we've had. And then we're always looking for ways to work collaboratively on mutually beneficial projects with other members of the community. One thing that we're really excited about that we're going to start working on this summer is in San Carlos, there's a language preservation office, and we're going to work with them to create videos of community members reading children's books in Apache. And they will bring the translation and the community members to read the books. And then we've actually in the shift to online programming gotten pretty good at putting together videos and filming them and editing them. So we'll bring that expertise and equipment, and we'll create videos that both programs will be able to use. And then the last slide is just thank you. And here's my email address. Feel free to get in touch if you have any questions.
So I'm getting feedback. Okay, this is Mara. I'm up here in the University of Alaska Fairbanks. I am the co-PI on our SciFAR grant, and Candy Darenfeld, who's also I see on this, she's our PI. We have two sites. One is at the Fairbanks Youth Facility, and the other is working with foster kids that are aging out of the system. Candy is the lead on that site. And so today I will be talking about the youth facility. I am joined in implementing that programming with our third colleague, Kendra Calhoun. And we're going into the third year of this SciFAR, but we have been at the youth facility and also working with foster kids. I should really call them foster teens because they are older than they're teenagers. We had a previous SciFAR grant. So this is in reality our 8th year. We did modify for the second grant, but in essence, it's the same. Essentially delivering healthy life skills, financial planning, resume help, job application help to teens. In the youth facility, this is a youth facility which brings in young men from all over the state of Alaska. We are working on the residential treatment unit side. So this is kids that are incarcerated for a crime, but are also undergoing substance abuse treatment at the same time. We are a small populated state, so we're not talking a youth facility of the size of something that you might see in a metro area. On average, we have about up to 16 youth can be on the residential treatment unit. And on average, we usually are seeing or working with about somewhere between 5 and 10 young men. They range in age from as young as 13 up to when they would age out at 18 and either be done with their sentence or go across the street to what we euphemistically call the Fairbanks Country Club, which is our Fairbanks Correctional Center. So they're all in one location. The average time that a young man spends in there is about 2 years, but the sentences can be as short as 6 months. So that's the background. The challenges. So I was asked to prepare slides on challenges, community engagement, and sustainability. So I'll briefly go through the challenges. When we started, there are a lot of challenges. Working in a secure facility is not the same as working outside. We also were working with a guard staff that never had really had a group come in before. And so it was a learning process for all of us. In the end, really, none of these challenges were insurmountable. And actually, in retrospect, they seemed quite small for the benefit that it brought to this particular population. And we have become, as 4-H, integrated into their group therapy schedule. So within maybe 2 to 3 years, we ceased being just sort of a nice kind of add-on to the menu of options that these youth receive while they're undergoing treatment, to being part of their group therapy. So the challenges that we face were really around this grant: is how do you survey a protected class, and how do we evaluate them? And we've done some very creative things throughout the past. Normally, we just try to get the guards and the staff to sort of give us feedback and their observations, since we cannot directly deliver surveys to these youth. We know nothing about them. We just have their first names. They can tell us what they want, but we cannot ask them. Evaluating direct program outcomes in a population that's receiving so much treatment. How do we determine what we as 4-H are really contributing to their development, other than specific statements where they might say, we love 4-H, and they do. They feel that 4-H is their most favorite group. Adapting curricula, for instance, we use One Circle Foundation curricula. It has a lot of interaction and outdoor stuff, and we can't do that. We're in one room. There's always a guard present. A lot of times we've integrated the guard into the group activities so that it's more inclusive. We have no control over disruptions to program delivery. They may go on to lockdown. They may remove one of our participants from the general population as punishment. And we're constantly having sort of new kids come in, new kids go out. Of course, none of that is anything that we have any say in. And the program turnover is governed by factors outside of our control. Next slide, please, which would be community engagement. Our community engagement is quite limited because we're working within a secure facility, and we are not, when these youth get released, we generally do not have contact with them. We have had occasions where they have reached out to us, and I'm currently working with one young man now who's working and wanting to get training to be a youth mentor. So sometimes they will reach out to us, but we don't initiate that. Their community are the guards and the staff. Most of these kids are coming from single parent or no homes. A lot are coming in from our Alaska Native villages because Fairbanks is the feeder. That's where they come for incarceration and treatment. So the guards and us are their community, and Kendra and I have gone to their graduations. There is a school within the facility, and we often participate pre-COVID in holiday get-togethers that we help organize. The youth will help. There's a commercial kitchen there. We will go in and prepare a meal. Their families, such as, if their families here within the area, they're invited to come, and we have some type of holiday celebration. We've recruited guest organizations and presenters to come in from our military base and other local organizations to sort of do career presentations to the young men. We had a service dog training organization that worked with us for a couple of years. And then we also act as the liaison and resource for involvement of other organizations that are now bringing programming into the youth facility. Prior to 4-H coming in under our first SIFAR grant, the guards and staff there had really just worked with internally providing the anger management, therapy, and other sorts of modalities of treatment that these youth receive. Now we have 4-H. There's also Blossom House, which is a local organization that offers trauma-sensitive yoga and other modalities for trauma-informed care. And they offer twice weekly trauma-informed yoga with the youth. And then Breadcrumbs Theater, which is also a playback type theater that helps youth get in touch with their feelings and past experiences. So these are two that are now also delivering regular programming inside the youth facility. And final slide, please, on sustainability. Probably our biggest step towards sustainability is simply that we became part of their treatment program. So right now we are using SciFar to fund this, but we also, because we've been delivering this program now for quite some time, it's really down to, you know, we provide the programming. It's something that the university, through our other work, Kendra and I can continue to go in. We have built recruited other organizations such as Breadcrumbs Theater, and now this year a local farm and education center is helping them put in a garden, so that we've kind of expanded the group that is bringing activities to youth there. It's the longevity also. We will have, you know, we're closing in on 8 years now, so that we're a trusted resource to the Department of Justice here, and the guards that are at the facility. And I already spoke about integration and the efficiency. It doesn't cost very much to deliver programming inside a youth facility, because really we're just bringing ourselves, and that's what the kids most look forward to, is just to have somebody to hang out with. We sit in their common room. It's just sort of like a college dorm. They're let out of their rooms. They can sit. We bring snacks. We just, you know, talk with them. Sometimes we watch movies with them. We do, both Kendra and I sometimes visit them on the nights that they have visitation, especially those kids that don't have parents in the area. So it's not something that even in the future, I mean, we could always use support to expand the resources that we can offer to them, but at a minimum, people coming in and just visiting with the kids. And so that fortunately can be often a low cost contribution to them. So any questions? You can put them in the chat, or yeah, email. I didn't include my email, but I assumed it would be in the program somewhere. So.
All right. Well, first, I just want to definitely say thank you. I'm grateful for this time to talk about specifically Juntos 4-H and the growth within the local and national level. I know that I sit right now in a space with experts who have awesome, successful programs around the nation. So this is part of our story, right? And so I hope that my goal really is for you to get to hear a little bit of our journey with our participants, our families in mind. So I'm hoping that you come out of this conversation with a story of our Juntos 4-H families and youth. Next slide. So what is Juntos, right? That's the question of today. And there is so much in the name, right? Juntos. When we think about sustainability, when we think about growth, you can't do that without doing it together. And that's why I love the name and what it represents to a community that sometimes can feel very alone as recent arrivals or immigrants, first generation, second generation coming into the States or living here. So there's a lot in the name. That's what I want you to get today, is how important it is how you communicate your program to others. What is the name and what purpose does it carry? What heaviness and weight does your name carry? And also one reminder too, as we think about how we identify as a program that we want to grow. You know, a lot of our families will look at the 4-H clover and may not know what it means, right? And so Juntos, we get to learn a little bit more about what 4-H is and what extension brings to our families. Next slide. So quickly, just to introduce the program, we are a program that serves both the young people and the families. The core of our program is to produce an environment of access. And the most important word, well, there's a lot of important words here, but to me, the most important word here that really identifies the sustainability of our program is the fact that we are a bridge for our young people. to get to a place of not knowing to a place of knowing, to get to a place where they feel that they can walk the journey together and step into that journey with others. Okay, next slide. So quickly, the components of our program, I have to tell you that it did start with a research question. It did start with these statistics that showed that a population had the highest high school dropout rates, but that's not where it stopped. The important element of our program is that we have always from the start and continue today to go to the community, and they're the ones that set the stage for the components that I'm about to present to you. So if you go to the next slide, please. These are all evidence-based practices. So you can look at the research, and of course, a lot of you are within the 4-H profession. So you've seen the research of what being in 4-H means to a lot of young people. We also know within education, the importance of our parents being involved in the process and how crucial that is to the success of education. We see the importance of mentoring. I think yesterday we heard a little bit more about the research around mentoring and success coaching around academics. And then we know that access, right? For our kids to have access, not just to a summer program, but a summer program that is intentional and producing resources that they may not see every day. So for us, that means our Juntos Academy, which is an opportunity for our young people to come to the land-grant university and experience themselves as a college student for a week. And it also is an opportunity for us to engage our young people in other 4-H summer programs. Next slide. So when we talk about this journey of growth and partnership and how the heck did this little program in North Carolina get to be a national program where 13 total states said, yes, this program is something that we want for our communities because there's a need within our communities for this program. So that's what I want to spend most of my time talking about. And it has to do with that bridge, right? That bridge that we brought up earlier and how important that is to the language that we bring within our Juntos program. Next slide. So here, I just want to show you a little bit of the history. So our programming started with a little pilot high school curriculum at that time, back in 2007, that really, we talked about it, and some teachers, specifically ESL teachers, came back to us, some principals, and said, hey, we'd love for you to pilot this curriculum in our schools. And that's exactly what we did. And so you see the yellow dots there. Those are the counties that back in the day, we started this little pilot curriculum that has led us to now have a full-blown year after year programming that we get to serve continuously our youth and our families. You see here some of the, where you see the C's, those are counties that have been supported by SIFAR funding. So we've been very grateful to see that. Out of all those counties, I would say only one is no longer implementing the program. We have had investors that have said, yes, we want to be there. But we have, one of the things that I've learned from this work is it's nice to have the money, but I want true investment in the partnerships for engaging with our population. And so when we don't have schools and we don't have systems that are ready for a program that is there to serve the full community, we have to think about going to other communities that are ready and have those, all the investors that are committed to the hard work that will take place if you implement Juntos in those communities. So our program did grow through grant funding. That's definitely how we grew. I will tell you that at times when we were writing grants, we would look at those numbers. Where are the Latinos? Where are they, right? And that's where we went. And we learned hard lessons again from making that decision. We have learned that it takes more time to think about sustainability when we meet with our partners beforehand and really get to hear where they are in regards to why they want to serve this population and why they want to bring it to the communities. So that for us has been something that in the future, and we've done it in the past 3 years, we've engaged in conversations with the extension director, the 4-H agent, the school systems, the community college systems. We've brought in industries, we've brought in nonprofits to talk about why it makes sense to have Juntos 4-H in their community. And so I think that that's just something for you all to learn. I know a lot of you already do it. The realities when we write grants is being able to establish that time. And that's why I'm grateful for SciFar, because it allows you that time to really establish those relationships and go where you're really wanted, because that means there's an opportunity for you to have real sustainability in the future. Next slide. So back in 2011, 12, actually, yeah. Oregon State University contacted us and said, we've heard about your program. There's a couple publications about the work that you've done, and we want you to train us. And so they were the first state that approached North Carolina State University and said, we want Juntos, we want you to train us. And so at that point, we started our venture into national programming. And it's been a beautiful ride, basically because of the partnerships that we've been able to develop. It hasn't been easy in the sense of, thinking about how to keep fidelity for the program, how to ensure that we're communicating and building those real partnerships. And for me, this is a personal program, right? I lived through a lot of the experiences as an immigrant child that our families are living. So I understand the opportunity to engage the community and really embrace the program as a system. And so that journey has been interesting to watch within, as a professional, as an individual, and just seeing the growth within extension and 4-H to embrace programs like Juntos 4-H. That's been a beautiful ride, actually. I would add beautiful to that. So for us, when a state engages in a conversation, we really think about and have a conversation about who's your team within that state. Once they identify a team of folks that are going to really embrace this program, take the time to be trained by us, then that team is really the creation of the team within that state that starts training their professionals. Keep in mind that this program today is in all land-grant universities, and we intend to really keep it that way, but also embrace the partnerships that come around that. Right? So North Carolina Juntos is partnering with all universities because it makes sense for us to partner with all universities. It makes sense for us to partner with community college systems because that's where our families and our kids are going, right? So once we partner through a contract or through a partnership with SciFar projects, there's a training that takes place. And then we continue the conversation with that lead person that's leading the program within that state. And so I, as the national director, will provide resources and engagement opportunities, and we'll continue the conversation on how do we do this better together. So I wanted to bring in, just so you hear, not just from me, but one of our partners, Idaho State. So Judith, I don't know if you can talk a little bit more about this partnership that we came into a couple of years ago.
Yes, I would love to. I'm Judith with the University of Idaho. Similar stories that people have shared already during this presentation, that we researched curriculum. We looked at our stats. We identified under-resourced communities and school districts. So in that, we found the Juntos. We felt that would fit our community, so fit our needs. And it was really all about timing and leadership as well, because we did have 2 failed funding opportunities. We tried to write grants. Then in 2017, we did have our President's Council on Diversity and Inclusion. We had a Latino Advisory Committee. I was very much involved in that. And through that, we got to pilot and utilize the Juntos parent surveys. So we first started doing that. We got the permission from Diana to use that. And then we did secure the funding through SciFar, the joint project with that. So with Andrew and Diana, we definitely formed solid funding for at least 5 years through Juntos. In that, we have it in Jerome County, which is right smack in the middle of Idaho, central Idaho, at the middle school and the high school. We did, to start off, take the training at North Carolina State, a 3-day training. We took our team, and like Diana had mentioned, that is key that we do have the fidelity and the sustainability pieces in place. So the partnerships, the trainings, with that training, we have been able to bring it back. And now we're in the 3rd year, 4th year, if you count the pilot year as well. But I did see one of the comments in the chat already. We do have a parent that has become one of the presenters at the site now. She's been fabulous. And so that has grown into the community as well. So we've also now, because of that training, we brought North Carolina State to our state and had 4 states join. So that has been key in getting our program to grow in our state as well, and then adjoining states.
So quickly, I think it's important for us to think about the connections with our investors. You've got to go with vision. If you're going to implement a program, especially like Juntos, that requires so much engagement, you have to go with your vision in mind. What is it that you want to do within your county, within your school, within your state? If you want to go to the national level, within the national level, right? So who are your stakeholders? Who are the sustainers, right? For us, it's really talking to the state extension director and saying, how are you investing, right? Having those tough conversations with our administrators, and in a beautiful way, in a kind way. And then just thinking about, always share an impact. And I'll put in the chat, I'll put 2 reports. One is our last year's report that we put out to all of our investors, and we put it on our website. And then also just think about the reality of where you sit as a land grant university. Extension can't do this type of work alone. If I didn't go beyond extension, Juntos would not be where it is today. And also always being intentional about that cultural relevance within the community that you're serving. So I'll put those 2 resources to share impact. And Judith, I don't know if you want to share your news on how your sustainers are kind of stepping out recently and saying, yes, Juntos is where we want to invest.
Yes. So like I said, we did start with that joint project with North Carolina State with SciFar funding, but that has generated a lot of interest. The local community is involved, the school districts. We do have our 4-H Youth Development State Director and team all involved. The Extension Director has gotten involved as well. We just recently had the Senior Director for Development contact me about embedding Juntos into the UI system and outreach. So we've shared all those publications, like Diana said. We also are utilizing some of the American Rescue Plan Act funds. So we are going to add some additional sites there. So really looking at embedding it into the program and sharing it. Sharing those publications, the podcasts, any of the resources there, but the importance of sharing with all partners at all levels and knowing the needs and connecting those resources for all of the youth and families.
So at this time, I just want to say thank you to Kate, Mara, Diana, and Judith for their comments. Now we'll open it up to anybody who may have any questions for any of them about what we've just been discussing. And as we continue to think about any questions we might have, Chris Petty has a question. So go ahead, Chris, and ask away.
Hi, everyone. My name is Christopher Petty. I'm a program specialist with the Division of Youth and 4-H at USDA NIFA, now in Kansas City. Just wanted to say thank you. Thank you so much for your good work. This is exactly the kind of stuff moving forward that the Division of 4-H, Youth and 4-H wants to promote. We want to see this kind of reaching out to underserved audiences. So I put my email in the chat. I'll do that again. If you want to share your stories with us, we'd love to hear them. Appreciate everything you're doing.
And as we're waiting on some questions, I'll just ask one to our panelists. What would you say is the most important thing, or the absolute, you got to do this when reaching out to different communities to form those partnerships?
So I don't know if it's the most important, but I think one very important thing is to be willing to listen and really listen to what they have identified as their needs. And I know for us, we kind of had an idea of what we wanted to do. And then when we started talking to community stakeholders, that evolved and changed in response to what they had identified as a need in their community. So I think that, you know, both reaching out and talking to people, but then mostly listening and really being willing to listen and maybe even decide, you know, we're not the right people to do this. Maybe this isn't a space where we need to be. Maybe we can support community organizations in doing their work. So, you know, also being willing to kind of step back if it's not, you're not the best people to do that. Okay.
I will tag on to that, and this might be not the thing to say when we're being funded by grants, but we have really worked more to adapt the grant requirements to what is the needs, especially when we're working within the youth facility, because there just are certain things that we absolutely cannot do. And also even with the youth in foster and in state custody, I mean, but yet these are the populations that really benefit from this type of programming and this type of support. So rather than sort of coming, you know, I think what often happens with grant funded programs is that you come in and you say, well, this is what the grant requires, and so we must do it X, Y, Z. We are doing more creative approach where we respond to what is needed, and then we figure out how to, you know, make that fit within the grant requirements by creatively working with the grant requirements, so that we can, you know, we're in compliance with what the grant requires, but we're not basically shoehorning that onto this group of organizations, because otherwise we would not have been able to really implement this grant at the youth facility in particular. But it was really, I can't think of a population that more defines what the purpose of this grant is than kids that are incarcerated and really isolated from a whole lot of resources and don't get any, they get almost no support from our state coming out of incarceration. And that is also true actually for our foster kids. They just don't have a whole lot. And the amount of resources and support that all of these kids in state custody have access to is shrinking as our economy shrinks here, because we are dependent solely on, pretty much on oil for our largest you know, source of state funds, and that our oil fields are drying up. So we're kind of going down the tubes that way. Anyway, that's what I have to contribute.
Yeah, and just definitely listening is important. I know for me, you can get caught up in the academia world that says, well, the research shows this and the research shows that. And it's very important to look at the research. But I have found myself as a practitioner having to go back to the community and listen to what they're saying. So for example, you know, some research may show, or some professionals within youth development might say, well, we need to produce a space for just youth to grow and learn. And I thought about that within our workshop series, because we bring the youth and parent together to learn together. And I thought, well, should we separate them? And I was challenged by the mothers of some of the groups that I attended who said, no, this is our opportunity for us to connect with our kids. This is where we get to connect in our own language. This is where we're having conversations that don't happen at home because we're not connecting at home. So I think for me, it was just a really crucial element for me to hear, listen, be in tune with the research, but also be in tune with the community that have different needs than a lot of the research that's out there right now. And the other thing, you know, I came into this thinking we have to be evidence-based, and we have to go through all the steps to become an evidence-based program. That was me a couple of years ago. And, you know, evidence-based is important, but our families deserve more than evidence-based. And so that's what I think a lot of our, like within our team, within our 13 states, that's what we're trying to figure out. You know, we can survey our participants to death, but we need to think about how we're also surveying and talking to those systems where our participants are part of.
If I might just jump into, so we've talked about champions a lot in our SciFar programming and finding those champions of our program. And that's, I think, Diana, exactly what you were, you know, saying too, is that they deserve more. You're right. Those champions that can help support them outside of that programming too, or support our programs. And going right to the top, where in your state is the top person or the top organization that can be your best champion? For us, the Office of Juvenile Justice, for this program, Office of Children's Services. So making sure that they understand what we're doing and the impacts that we're having, and really tooting our own horn is really important in bringing that whole community aspect together from the top down.
Well, we thank you all once again. It's truly the focus of what we're trying to do with SciFar. And so we really, really appreciate your words of wisdom and your thoughts. I love the aspect of really just listening to the base, listening to who you're trying to help, and taking from them what that is, and then also making sure that you find your champions. And then also just making sure that you understand the academics, but again, listening to who you're trying to support and helping them with what they say they need. So that's awesome. It is now time for another break.